when you have somebody of high conflict who is just hell on wheels, determined to hate you more than they love their kids, there's nothing I can do about it. So I want you to have that parenting plan right from the beginning, because I want you to use it as your tool to interview. I didn't have any self-worth when I was over here asking a man who hated my guts to give me money. For whatever reason, I felt low about myself, that I was so stuck on this injustice that he was not paying me for half of things. My self-worth is what really changed everything.
Hey, Samantha, welcome to the show. I'm super excited to chat with you today.
Me as well, Amber. Nice to have me here. I love it. I love it.
We were already, riffing right before we hit record, and I can already tell him, like, oh, you and I are going to be fast friends. Like, we're
exactly.
just, this is it, right? I knew you were going to be a fast friend when you made the comment, you made the Trump comment. And I was like, oh, we're on the same side here. Okay, amazing.
Exactly.
Well, you know what? I love always kicking this off. I would definitely want to get into a little bit of your story. I want to, as you actually phrased it, how you turned your shit show into like a multi-million-dollar business. I want to talk a little like boss babe entrepreneurship. I also want to talk about what you do in your coaching business, but I always love just like kicking it off with like a quick little rapid fire question. And you specialize in parenting plans.
Yes.
And I just want to know, like, when it comes to parenting plans, what's the most overlooked detail that often causes problems later that people don't think about?
Detail.
Detail.
It's detail. And I will say the biggest one that affects the kids the most is not having detail around times. Exact times of when your visitation time is, exact times for your holidays, and exact times of when you can leave and return for vacation. I deal a lot with high conflict parents, whether it be just somebody that really doesn't like somebody, or actually somebody that may have a mental issue or just a trauma that they've never really taken care of. And so they lash out at their ex, the whole time. And so if you don't have a really good parenting plan that gives strict times with your kids, it can just blow up. And I think a lot of attorneys and judges who don't live this life of being a divorced single parent just kind of always throw out these vague parenting plans, and they have the intention that both people are going to work it out and talk it out and do what's best for kids. Well, that takes two responsible, respectful people to do that. And a lot of us are divorcing people that will never treat us with respect ever again. And so the detail of time around when I have my children is so important and should not be overlooked. That is a fine-tooth comb. You have to go through that thing and make sure that details around time is really put in there.
I love that. Yeah. That's so key. Cause that is definitely, especially like when you start getting like when it starts, like when the kids start to get older and you start dealing with like freaking sports pickups and this and it's just, it can be such a mess if that's not clear. So
exactly. Yeah. Who can sign the person up? Who's going to pay? Well, what if we have a tournament and we have 3 kids and only 1 kid's in the tournament? What happens to the other 2 kids? Who's watching them? Who can transport them? Are they going up with the tournament? All of it. I cover all of that inside my parenting plan for people, because that was the life I lived. I lived in high conflict, and I lived with somebody who we had a shitty parenting plan. And the whole time I was like, why did we pay this much money for this shitty object? It does not help us at all. And so that's how my business was created. Was from my own journey. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You know what? Let's share a little bit about your journey and just kind of like what you brought here. Cause like, as you're even like saying, I'm very lucky that I don't have a high conflict ex. And so I don't even know what my parenting plan said. I'll be honest. I don't even know what mine says.
Then you are co-parenting, where I'm parallel parenting. So there is a difference,
Yeah.
So I was a teacher, got divorced. I thought it would be easy. I thought it was literally like a young and restless divorce. I thought I'd be able to hand him this blue trifold piece of paper. He'd open it, we'd sign it.
Young and restless.
That's how dumb I was. I was literally like the dumbest girl on the block about it. I thought there's no way this man would ever do to me what he did to his first wife, red flag. And there we were, 8-year battle, 4 years to get divorced, $100,000, tons of attorneys, tons of judges. And the whole time I was going through the process, I kept thinking, like, does everybody go through this like this? Like, this is mental warfare. This is hell. This is like a war. This is like a death. Like, what is going on? And I kept telling my mom, like, I am super smart. I had 2 master's degrees, but I didn't know shit about divorce. I didn't know what I was signing. I didn't know what they were asking me. I just felt really dumb through the whole process, and I didn't understand the court system, which I think a lot of us in high conflict can understand that it's a pretty fucked up situation.
Yeah.
So fast forward, we get divorced, and it was miserable, and I was kissing a man's ass who didn't want to co-parent with me because I wanted that Lifetime movie. I wanted us to still do holidays together and still show up together and sit by each other and wear matching fucking shirts. And, like, I wanted that. I just didn't want to be with him, but I wanted us to still be that co-parenting, relationship. And I was a slow learner, and I did not figure out that this man was never going to like me, was never going to be treating me the way I needed to be treated, and was never going to be respectful. And so I switched to parallel, and I met my current husband. And again, I was teaching just high school stuff and junior high subjects. And he was like, why don't you start teaching people about divorce? And I was like, you're crazy. And he was like, no, seriously, people keep asking you questions. You know a lot. You went out and got an education about it, So I became a mediator, and that taught me a lot of the technical stuff. But again, I think my own experience in working with people kind of got me into the divorce coaching world to where now I just coach people on my biggest mistake, which was getting a parenting plan that did not help me, which caused me to go back to court repeatedly, year after year, dollar sign after dollar sign. And so I build parenting plans. So my kids were 1 and 3 when I got divorced, and they're now 20 and 18. They're part of my business. And they've told me all the things I did wrong. They've told me all the things I did right. And it's really cultivated a really good cohesive parenting plan for what's best for kids who have high conflict. So I've come up with a methodology that I know works.
Well, I'm so curious, like if you were parallel, like parenting, how did you even get your ex to agree to this new, like, how did that even come up? Is that where you're saying you had to just keep taking him back to court and you already had it written out and finally like he just agreed to what you had, kind of?
No, we dealt with the same 4 pages our whole year through. He was the one that took me back to court time and time again. High conflict people, their playground is the courtroom. They love to live there because it makes me financially ruined. So every 3 to 6 months he was filing, take me back for this and that and this and that. So I didn't ever take him back. That was his, again, playhouse. So we dealt with the same parenting plan all 4 years. And when you have somebody of high conflict and you have a shitty parenting plan, what you end up doing as the dominant parent who gives a shit, you end up just doing all the work and you end up paying for all the things and you end up not even asking, you just end up doing, and they end up cutting themselves out eventually when you just show that you're consistent with who you are. So again, as I was going through that and we would hit this, milestone where it wasn't mentioned, and another thing that wasn't mentioned in our parenting plan, I kept taking notes and I'm like, I wish it would have said this. I wish it would have been this. And then I got my education and then I learned all the things I was asking for isn't well known in a lot of states and countries about parenting plans. Like these parenting plans that are out there are meant for situations like yours, where people can still be respectful and work together and both people have some common sense on how to treat each other right and for the betterment of their children. When you have somebody of high conflict who is just hell on wheels, determined to hate you more than they love their kids, there's nothing I can do about it. There is, believe me, I've tried. I've danced, I've spun, money. Nothing works for these people. They're just out for blood. So you have to have a solid parenting plan for your backbone. So if he comes for me, I can say, oh, I would love to, but I'm going to follow the parenting plan. I'm going to follow the details that we have signed and ordered. I'm not going to try to be your friend because that doesn't work. High conflict people want to be your friend for 5 seconds so they can fuck you in the end.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm curious for you, and for the listeners, were there, and looking back, were there any other, did this just come out of nowhere other than the ex-wife? Was there any other sign that you in looking back are like, oh yeah, okay, he really was a motherfucker and I should have had my eyes open?
Yeah. I mean, I think first and foremost, when you're going to be a second wife, you have to really go digging as into why did this person's marriage fail the first time? And I superficially believed everything he said. She's crazy. She's a bitch. She took my son. She took everything, just lie after lie after lie. His ex-wife and I are now friends. Guess what? Our stories match up pretty well now on what both happened to us. So I think it's more of like, if you are getting with somebody that's been married before, if they can't take ownership in any part of that marriage failing, that's a red flag. It's a huge red flag. I asked the question, what happened? He told me the sob story. I fell for it. Now, Amber, I'm going to tell the truth here. I married him after 60 days of knowing him.
Okay.
So, I mean, that's a big, fuck up on my part, right? But I got 2 great kids out of it. I mean, 2 kids that now, because of their own journey, are helping other kids and other moms. And they're bigger, faster, stronger because of what happened to them and their lifestyle that they had. They're great human beings. They're successful and content, and they've had a ton of therapy, and they're perfectly fine.
Yeah, I love that. It's so for the woman who is basically you, who did get fucked by the parenting plan and just basically had to suffer through, because I know that was probably 4 long years that you had to deal with that, but good God, there's some women, obviously their kids are babies and they're going to have to do it for 18 years. And maybe if they can't afford to, take their ex back to court, what do they do? Are they just fucked? Is there any,
I mean, my kids were 1 and 3 when I started my divorce. So I did a whole 18 years with it.
Okay.
I did the whole process. Yeah. And I think some things that I would do different would be, number 1, radical acceptance that this is your life. This is your situation. No amount of cartwheels and hula hoop jumping is going to get this person to stop coming for you. And the other part of radical acceptance about who you have to deal with is it's not a reflection of who you are. Just because you might have married wrong and just because it might have been a bad egg doesn't make you a bad egg. You made a wrong choice. It's not a life sentence. The other part of that is knowing what you have. You can't go to the court system and ask them to help. I mean, I'm sorry, the family court system is not there yet. They're not into mental warfare. They're not into mental health. They don't want to hear about narcissism. They don't want to hear about high conflict. They just want the bottom line of you pay your attorney to be there. And so I think I use the court system to try to see what he's doing. He's having me come back. And I try to use the court system. What I should have been doing is putting all that time and energy in myself and healing myself to learn boundaries and manifestation and what do I want for my future and how can I get this toxic part of my life to just be over here and not bleed itself all over every corner of my life, because it was for a long time. I think I wish I would have learned that sooner, is that radical acceptance that this only has to be a small percentage of my time. The rest of my life is great. I'm alone. I have my kids. I have my business. I have my friends and family. But I let him seep into a lot of shit for the first few years. And I was just resistant to, if I just do this one thing, it'll stop. If I just do this, it'll make it better. Nothing was going to make that better. So I was resistant for a long time because that would be a reflection of me of why did I marry a person that treats me so bad? But through therapy, I figured out has nothing to do with me. That's his choice to treat me that way. It's nothing I can do about it. That's who he is.
Yeah. I talk with the women, all day, every day, who a lot of women coming out of high conflict divorces. This is what, kind of like your story is this is why they want to go into that business to help other women, because they know the hell it can be in high conflict divorce. So what are some of the, I know you made a really good point about not letting it seep into all areas of your life. And I mean, I think right now, I think about, holy shit, if Frank were a total asshole and I was in that situation, I can't even imagine what that would be like, because you have to communicate with that person all day, every day. I think about how many text messages Frank and I send in a day, and I'm like, I don't even know what that would be like. So what were some of the communication strategies maybe that you teach your clients or that you also did to not let it affect every other piece of your life and to really kind of build that wall and that boundary?
Well, first you have to realize you're more than a mom. And I think when we're constantly wanting to engage in text messages, that means we're constantly wanting to be in mom mode and co-parenting mode. And you have to find who you are outside of being a mom. Because your kids, like mine, are 20 and 18. They're gone. Who am I? I'm not a mom anymore for them. I have 2 more kids now. I have a 6 and 5-year-old because I'm crazy and had kids at 40 with my new husband, but he's a unicorn, so he deserves them. But I think you have to be more than yourself. You have to be more than just mom. You have to have something that's keeping you constantly busy. The other thing is you have to keep it business professional. When I receive something from my ex-husband, I can easily read it from a mom's perspective and take it personally and get my, titties all upset and be all in my emotions and overreact with a response. Or I can read it as if it's somebody that I work with that I've never fucking liked a day in my life anyways, but it's a coworker and I have to work with them because the HR will fire me if I don't. So I'm looking at it from a business perspective of I hear what you say, that's your opinion, not mine, and I'm going to respond back in a business-like manner so that HR can read it and know that I'm not the asshole in the story. And I think not taking things personally and really wrapping your head around your perspective is yours, but your ex's is also theirs. And I think too many of us are trying to talk your ex-husband into believing you, validating why you did something or making him see the light or, getting him to realize that you're not a bad person. He is going to play victim every which way he can turn. That's the only thing he knows. So you over-explaining and oversharing is going to backfire every time. And again, I was a slow learner with that. I'm over here let me tell you why I told you no, you can't have the kids. It's not because I hate you. It's because we have plans and blah, blah, blah. And here's where we're going. And then he's yelling at me, you shouldn't take the kids there. And it was I should have never even gave him that much information. I would have never given a coworker that much information. I would have never overshared with the guy in the cube next to me that I don't like. Why did I tell him? And it's this innate feeling that we feel like we have to justify everything or defend ourselves as mothers. And again, that's where I have to look at myself as Sam when I'm reading this, not mom. And how is Sam? Sam's a badass. Sam's a bitch. Sam has boundaries. Sam knows what her worth is. Mom sometimes doesn't, but Sam does. So Sam responds, not mom.
I love that. I love the comparison to a coworker. I think that and I love that you threw in the caveat that you never fucking liked anyways, right? Because I'm okay. Lazy. I would respond a little bit different. Well, I am so curious now with the parenting plan. You said something a minute ago about, or you were talking about you have new kids. Congratulations, babies at 40. Yes, my mom had her last baby when she was 43. Crazy. So crazy. You might be a little crazy, but I love
it. It is crazy.
But I'm curious, know, I've always said that if I get married again, I think that I want to do a prenup because anybody that's ever gone through divorce knows that the financial piece of it, like before I got married in my 20s, like, oh no, like I don't want to do that. Blah, blah. Now I'm like, oh, no, fuck that. Because I look at it differently and I'm like, all this says is that there's a plan. Like if shit goes bad, there's a plan. So I'm curious, and I just don't know enough about this. Are they now working parenting plans into prenups?
I wish, Jared and I talk about this, my husband and I talk about this, that if we ever split, we should write one now while we get along with each other of what we want it to look like later. Right. But the thing is, it's not part of it. It's not part of like, the first beginning stages of marriage to build your parenting plan. I wish it was, but so many things can change. I have clients whose husbands go away at war and come back with TBIs. So for her to have a parenting plan that was done early before he left to war and came back a completely different person with a TBI, she can't agree that parenting plan now fits his life because he's a completely different person with an injury, a brain injury. Yeah. So it probably wouldn't work. It's an ideal situation. It would be great. But, Jared and I don't have a prenup, but here's what I've learned. We have learned that I need to be building him up. He's a stay-at-home dad. I build him up financially to where he doesn't have to touch mine if we split. And I think so many married people who have stay-at-home moms or stay-at-home dads, you think that you're going to live off of that one retirement and then you divorce. It's like you should be building up both of your retirements, whether stay at home or not, the whole time. That financial independence. I mean, we got married late in life, right? He's my second and I'm his first. You have to have your own plan. If something goes south, what are you doing? And some people think, oh, I can't believe you think like that. It's like, well, shame on me if I wouldn't, because I am a divorced person. So I am constantly thinking about if this goes south, who gets this house, who gets this car. Like we don't have names together on a lot of things just to keep it simple. So it's an easy cut and it's not this, because I'm never going to do that ugly of a divorce again. Dude. I told him, I'm like, dude, you can have the kids. I'll walk away. I'll be the Disney mom. I will be the every other weekend. I will buy them everything, but I'm not going through that bullshit twice. Yeah. There's no way. I can't survive it. There's no way. Yeah. There's no way.
Yeah. I look at like what you've gone through and I'm like, damn, like I can't even imagine, what that would be like. So at what point in the process, typically should somebody reach out to somebody like yourself that does a custom parenting plan?
Gosh. Great question.
Yeah.
Great question. I want it early. Like I had a mom the other day who is still in the home. They're fighting like crazy. And she's like, I see all your stuff. You sound like you know exactly who I'm married to. What do I do? And I was like, oh, best client ever. I want people in an ideal situation to get their parenting plan set up with me before they even hire their attorney. And here's why. I want you to be able to take said parenting plan that I build you. And I build custom parenting plans from diapers to diplomas. No matter what age your kid is, I can get their ass all the way out the door to graduation. Okay. I'm going to write out everything that happens to your children. Because again, my children were 1 and 3 and now they're 20. So I've been through all the shit.
Yeah.
All the sporting events, all the medical concerns you can think of, believe me, either I've done it or my clients have done it in the past decade of doing this. So I want you to have that parenting plan right from the beginning because I want you to use it as your tool to interview. I want you to be able to go to every lawyer that you do your consultations with, which you should be doing at least 2 or 3 so you can compare. And I want you to bring that parenting plan and slap it on the table and say, hey, I want to hire you. I want you to know that I kind of already am educated about this process. So that's going to cut down on your cost. It's going to cut down on them knowing that you're stupid and they can run their bill up on you. Right. I'm going to lay that down and say, hey, I already have my thoughts down because these are my kids, not yours. And I know what's in their future and I know what I want for them. Your job will be talking the other side into this. So how good are you at negotiating? How good are you at sales? How good are you at bullshitting the other side into believing this is what's best for them? I want every parent to know what they are talking about. I sat in meetings where she was talking and it was like the Charlie Brown teacher. I was like, I have no idea the words she's using. Right of first refusal. I was like, do I want that? I'm asking a woman. I'm like, do I want that? And she's like, well, I don't know. Do you? I'm like, I don't even know what the fuck it is.
Yeah. You're like
yeah. And then I'm getting charged $300 an hour just to talk to her, to ask her about something that people could come to me, learn all the lingo, learn all the options, learn all the strategies. So I think parenting plans early on, because no matter, even if you've missed the boat and you already have an attorney, at some point for every divorce that has children, the end product, what you will walk away with is a parenting plan. Do you want your attorney, who possibly doesn't even have children, who doesn't know what high conflict is, who doesn't know what turmoil is, who doesn't know the feels behind that, writing that? Or do you want the state standard one that is, I'm going to just tell you, garbage in every state? They're just garbage. They're all gray area. And why are they like that? Lawyers write them in the gray. States give them in the gray because it's a business. It's a $9 billion business a year, family law is. It's only that way because people keep coming back and keep coming back because those plans suck. I want you to be one and done. I want you to write this thing from diapers to diploma, be done with it, and go on with your fucking life. Move on.
Yeah.
You know, like go be single, go remarry it, go build an empire. Stop going back to court for shit that could have been figured out the first time.
Yeah, absolutely.
So earlier the better. Plus it eases your anxiety. You know, people watch my TikToks, watch reels of other coaches, and they're like, that's a good idea, that's a good idea, that's a good idea. And they got 45 Post-it notes up in their head, but it's not on paper yet. Get your thoughts on paper early so you can focus on your well-being and the children's well-being through the process.
Yeah, for sure. What are some other maybe tips that you would give for somebody who is in that stage of like with their attorney, right? Of how to, I know you talk a lot about like basically how to getting the most value out of that relationship. I know one of the things I learned was like, don't call your attorney to like vent about how much you hate your ex, because that's...
Right.
Like
that's an expensive therapy session.
That's an expensive therapy session.
Right.
Like, what are some other things maybe that you recommend as far as like just getting the most value out of that relationship? Just being as like most, like some other things I know obviously coming with the parenting plan is going to be another way. Anything else that you suggest of just how to kind of like get your most bang for your buck?
I think it's also reading and understanding your contract with your lawyer. And I think so many of us sit in that consultation, we get the whole, you know, bedazzled conversation. We get the best of that in that sales pitch. And we're like, where do we sign? You sound amazing. Let me give you a retainer. And when I give a retainer and it's $10,000, $15,000, I'm thinking in my mind, because I'm a virgin to divorce, I'm like, this is going to cover a lot. And then 3 months later, they're like, hey, Sam, we're through that. We need another 15. And you're like, we haven't even done anything. Like, what's going on? So I think understanding your contract of like, how much does that phone call cost you versus how much does a court appearance cost you versus how much does an email response cost you? How much does sending you postage on something, sending you snail mail? How much? Everything can cost money, and understanding your contract. And again, I'm somebody that's organized. I mean, organization is easy for me. I don't need to hire a lawyer that is organized. I can keep my case organized for the both of us. What I need in high conflict is a lawyer that can talk the talk, can make my ex feel uncomfortable, can really get under the other attorney's skin, knows the judge really well. So my pick for an attorney isn't necessarily somebody I'm like, oh, I get along great with them. I don't really care if you get along with your attorney or not. I want your attorney to bother the other side. I want somebody in high conflict. We don't need a paper pusher. We need somebody that can put out fires, because high conflict people will be lighting a fire in every corner of our house. And our attorney's job is to go put those fires out, not to sit back and do paperwork and write out a parenting plan. No, I can do that. You go put out the fires and get all this through a lot faster. So I think it's a matter of knowing what type of lawyer you need for your type of case. If you pick wrong, a lot of people stay because they think it looks bad if you want to change lawyers. It does not. You know, if you went to a gynecologist and you didn't get a good vibe, or you just gonna be like, well, it might look bad if I switch. Right. No, you're going to be like, see ya, go into a new office, didn't like that experience. You wouldn't think twice. This is the same thing. You gotta find somebody that fits your type of case. Your girlfriend's case is not your case. I mean, us two sitting right here, you had a completely different experience than I did. I would never ask you who your lawyer is because it wouldn't fit my type of case. You know, I need somebody that has had high conflict before.
I was going to say, like, how do you know, though, what type of case you have? Like, I think back to me, you know, 5 years ago when I was just a fucking hot mess. And like, now, fortunately, my attorney was like a friend of mine. I knew her. She was also on she's one of Nancy Grace's attorneys. So I knew she was a bulldog, but I was lucky in that. But I mean, it's like, how do you know what kind of attorney you need? That's number one. And then number two, I think that where women can get screwed, and this is why I'm just curious, like if you think that everybody should just go into their divorce thinking it could be high conflict, because I know for me, there were some things, even though we've got a pretty amicable situation, there were some things that got nasty real quick. Yeah. And so like, how do we know? What should we look for?
Well,
how do we know
I have a checklist on my website, which I can just tell you now. I would rather be over prepared than underprepared. Yeah. I would rather know that if, you know, my ex and I are getting along, I can take that parenting plan, 50 pages of it, and go put it up on the shelf and let it collect dust. But the second one of us starts dating and things get a little wonky, I can pull that puppy back down and use it. If one of us becomes great at a job and starts going up the ladder of salary, that's going to make the other person a little bitter, a little upset. There's conflict all the time. You know, it's a matter of what people do in that conflict, but I would rather be over prepared. So yeah, to answer your question, I don't think every case is high conflict, but again, really think about this. You're getting a divorce and you can't get it done at your kitchen table. You both went out and hired an attorney to do the talking for you. So to me, you're starting off in a high conflict, because one person is going to feel a little bit less than the other person. One person's going to be intimidated. So I would just rather everybody be over prepared for any season that could come, because I see it all the time in my DMs. Sam, when we got divorced, we were getting along and everything was fine. And then the second I remarried, all hell broke loose, and now we can't agree on anything because one person's feelings are hurt, right? Because of the remarriage or whatever. Somebody's successful, somebody's happy, somebody's moved on. And so I would just rather, like, instead of having to start that whole treacherous process of going back over and hiring an attorney again and going through discoveries and interrogatories and all that bullshit again, just prepare for the worst case scenario. And that's something if you are getting along with your ex, you're going to have to talk them into, you know what, there may be a time when you start, dating that I'm going to get my feelings hurt. I want to make sure we're prepared that the child does not have an effect on that or doesn't get affected by that. So we're going to write a parenting plan that covers all things from this to there. And just that way, if we ever need it, it's there. I mean, you're paying for it. You're paying all these thousands of dollars to an attorney to get a parenting plan. That is the product you're paying for.
Yeah.
Why not make it as thorough as possible? I use the analogy of this. Do you think at any point in time, Tiger Woods and Nike would have a vague, let's just work it out later. Let's talk about how many commercials later. We'll negotiate your salary later. Hell no. Tiger's not signing anything like that, and neither would Nike. They would be like, you have to do so many commercials. Here's the price. You can't be caught in anything besides red and Nike. There's very strict rules and policies because it's a contract. So is a parenting plan. But I see people all day sign a vague one, and then they have to come back, and that's why it's a $9 billion industry.
Yeah. You mentioned something a minute ago and something came up for me as I'm curious, because I talk to women. Well, what you mentioned is that if somebody starts making more money, right? And, I'm curious, and I talk to women all the time who maybe they created this parenting plan when they went through a divorce. And let's say it was, I can't remember, is it the parenting plan that talks about extracurriculars and who pays for that? Okay, right. Mm-hmm. Let's say though, you have two exes or whatever, and one does it at the time of the parenting things, you guys worked everything out pretty equally or whatever, it's 50-50. And then let's say the ex goes and he starts making a shit ton more money than he was when that parenting plan was created. And maybe you've gone down some, right? And now you're still stuck paying 50-50. And any parent knows, you look at AAU stuff and, I pay
travel
$5.
Oh my
God. I pay $5,000 for my daughter to do travel volleyball plus hotel room.
Where is that at? Yeah, I paid $23,000 Josie's senior year for volleyball. I want to know, what league were you in? Because I was in the wrong one.
20 something. That's okay. But I've talked to other moms about this who are in that situation. And it's what comes up though is oh my God, well, I feel stuck because if I were to take that person back to court, then it's I'm never going to win. they're going to drain me financially. So it's at what point do you recommend or do you think that a woman should be okay, maybe I should take them back to court on this?
Well, I think it has to mathematically make sense. If I know my attorney is going to cost, me roughly $3,000 to $4,000 to go get money, that money that I'm going to go get, or at least get the return on my dollar for, has to be greater than what it's going to cost me to get it. And I see too many women that, are living paycheck to paycheck, and all of a sudden somebody stops paying half of extracurriculars or stops paying child support, and they were using that to live off of. They don't have the money to go hire a $3,000 attorney to go get their $600 that they haven't had the past few months. So it has to mathematically make sense for going back. Is it a good on your return? Are you going to get the money? But I'm just here to tell you, in somebody that's dealt with high conflict her whole life, and money being the number one instigator of all fucking problems between my ex-husband and I think that radical acceptance piece on knowing that when you divorce, it will never be 50-50. It will never be fair. It will never be you doing your expectations and him doing the same. It will never be that way. And I know both of you participated in creating the child, but it just doesn't fall that way. One parent will always end up over providing for those children. Yeah. And for me in high conflict, I just came to a radical acceptance probably, 6 or 7 years ago. I looked to my husband, I said, look, I can't keep going and asking for the copay. It is beneath me at this point. I can't do it anymore. I don't want the rhetoric. I don't want the questioning back. My mental health is too important. I've been doing it for years. I can't do it anymore. And we're talking about a $20 copay that he was court ordered. I just couldn't do it. And so we just made the choice that we were just going to start paying for everything on our half, 100%, all of it. If they want to do a sport, we were paying for it. If they needed a car, we paid for it. If they needed a phone, we paid for it. And life became easier. And I'm telling you, I know it sounds hokey a little bit, but it was because I was spending so much time going after toxic money and toxic return and engaging with a toxic person, as soon as I dropped that baggage and just went, it's on me now, I'm just going to do it, my whole money life changed. My business took off. It was like that was an anchor that was pulling me down. And I think trying to like beat him down for money was preventing me from growth of new money and, my life changing and the money gods, granting me money, and everything just kind of changed. There was a struggle period, don't get me wrong. But then it was like, I knew it was all on me. Nobody's coming to help me. So, the Mel Robbins, no one's coming. What are you going to do? And it was work a side hustle, ask friends and family, start doing sponsorships. And so for me, in high conflict alone, that's all I know. I would never probably want to go back and ask for more money, because money is their trigger point. Money is where they will put the gauntlet down and say, I'm going to fight to the death to make sure she doesn't get an extra dime. So it wouldn't be worth it in high conflict. It never really is, unless there's this dramatic, then it's a change of circumstance. It's a W-2. It's, he starts making millions and you're over here a secretarial, salary. Then it's a change of circumstance. You turn in your W-2s, he turns in his. It's an easy math equation, and that's a child support adjustment. But to go and ask for half of extras sometimes from somebody that doesn't want to give you a $20 copay for a medical thing, radical acceptance, sweetheart. You're not going to get that money and it's just going to kill you trying. So you might as well just, what do the money gods have for you over in this corner, and start changing direction on where you get your funds from.
I love that advice. And so I love that you talk about, though, moving from like how your life, and I want to spend a little time on this, talking about how your life, you went from this kind of scarcity mindset, right? And trying to like get every dollar. And I think too, what can happen is we can also just get so wrapped up. It's not even at that point about the $20. We can just get so focused on like the fucking principle of it, right? And the justice. I know, it can be very easy to I can be very easy to get caught up in that, because especially if you already feel like there were some injustices done like during the marriage. Mm-hmm. And then you're like, I know I, for a long time was like, I'm not going to fucking let you walk all over me anymore. Right. Like, and so then it just becomes like your mission to like try and get like create this like fair environment. And I love what you're saying, but it's never really going to be fair, and you got to just accept it and move on, and you're better off. But what you talk about though is kind of like the money gods, and this is where everything blew up. I think, and I love though that you highlighted that, like, don't get me wrong. Like, it wasn't like just one day I was like, there's just like checks in the mail. And that's, right. You moved out of that place of like, okay, now like trying to get that money to like, it is on me. And I would imagine what happened for you is that it just started opening up your eyes to other opportunities.
They were all right in front of me there that whole time. It was just that I was hyper fixated on the injustice that I was going through, that someone wasn't paying their part. Like, who's going to help me see this? Like, he's not helping me. My kids want to do this, and he's saying no to it. My son was a competitive cheerleader, and of course he said no to that because what boy needs to be cheering? So, I was paycheck to paycheck at that point. And I thought, okay, my son needs this. These are his people. I need to make sure he has this. So, I offered to clean the gym's floor. Like, I will clean the floor after class. I will clean bathrooms. Like, I can't afford your tuition, but I will help with marketing. I'll help fundraise. And they were like, okay. And again, the pride in me had to fucking go away, because I needed to be able to provide for my kid. And then as soon as that happened, other people were like, how do you know about marketing? And I was like, well, I'm starting this business online, but it hasn't taken off yet. And then so people were like, can I pay you for a consult? Sure. And it was just like, because I offered to clean bathrooms, I now were getting people to pay me for consults. Make it make sense. But that would have never even been a possibility if I was still over here going, pay me back that money, pay me back. And I was, again, I'm going to someone that doesn't want to. Yeah. I have to do a workaround. It's like, okay, I can have a lawsuit over here with you trying to get you to pay, but in the meantime, I have to be over here hustling and grinding. So yeah, there was an ugly phase where, like for kids' uniforms, I was literally posting a plaster on social medias, and I would say, who wants to buy a sleeve? Who wants to buy a pant? Who wants to buy a shoe? Who wants to buy the socks? People, $20, $20, $20. Now I have a uniform paid for. I was very creative at getting my kids into their extracurriculars, and doing things and making sure I had money to pay for it. And then it was just like everything evolved. Well, if I can be that creative to think of that, then I must be able to be creative and use my business. And then my business took off. But a lot of it was my self-worth is what really changed everything. I didn't have any self-worth when I was over here asking a man who hated my guts to give me money. I didn't. For whatever reason, I felt low about myself, that I was so stuck on this injustice that he was not paying me for half of things. And when I let that go and focused all on me and my journey with my kids, everything kind of went in place. It was literally like the universe was like, thank you, because you were obsessed with talking about that negative stuff so much. We thought that's what you wanted because you kept talking about it all the time. You were this victim all the time. As soon as you took charge, we recognized that, and then we gave you powers back. And again, that might sound hokey to some people, but what you're thinking about all the time is what you will receive. And I was thinking about the injustice and the negativity and the money and him and he's an asshole and blah, blah, blah. And then as soon as I let that go, all this other stuff, positive energy was in, and it was just like everything took off. Everything took off.
It's so freaking inspiring. And I know for so many of the listeners who are in this place, I mean, what you just described, though, is why I am so on fire for helping women to start their own online coaching business, though, because I know just the power for me. Starting my business was the thing that catapulted me into that next chapter after my divorce. It was totally my reinvention. It was completely, helped me to rebuild my confidence, to heal, all of it. And so I think, though, even if somebody's maybe not a spiritual person, I mean, just looking at this practically, yes, when you step out of that negative energy all the time, you are going to get what you are putting out. That is the law of attraction, right? Exactly. So then you start showing up online as this boss babe, super confident, don't fuck with me. I'm in my power. I can do this energy. People pick up on that. It's just like when somebody walks into a room at a party and they say that they're so charismatic or they're just glowing. It's really because they have this confidence about them, and people are attracted to that energy. So I think that that's so powerful. And so I want to switch gears, though, a little bit and talk about your entrepreneurial journey, because there's a lot of women listening to the show, watching it on YouTube, that are maybe thinking about using their story or their expertise to create something of their own in the online space. But they were probably exactly where you and I were, right? They first of all, didn't know where the hell to start, right? Second of all, felt like I started my business when I was 40, right? And so I'm like, who's going to listen to some washed up 40-year-old damaged good? Who's going to listen to me? No one gives a shit about me. And I know that there are so many women listening to this, though, that have such a powerful story that needs to be heard. And so what advice would you give that woman who's just contemplating and really struggling with that confidence to maybe build something of her own?
I love this question because I tell people all the time, because I get a lot of calls of people saying, how do you do this? How do you do what you do? And I'm like, man, if I had a do-over, one of the things that I would wish I would have done so much better was when I was going through my journey, I wish I would have journaled about it and videoed myself talking to myself. And really, I want to go back and feel that pain to where it can help me market better. Because I think I have trauma resisted a lot of, I'm like, nope, bury it, forget that happened to you. And I think as a coach in this field, you have to be able to tap into that a little bit more to be able to relate to your clients. So I think I would have journaled better during my whole process of divorce. I wish I would have, done videos of myself. That would have been step number one. But step number two is just fucking start. Get your story out there. Now, again, unless you're still in your court battle, be careful. But, I'm out of mine. I started a little bit before the normal person. I probably shouldn't have, but I did, because I got to a point one day where I'm like, Mom, I got to tell my story. There's got to be somebody else like me. And I just authentically started telling my story. And that can be anyway. I know some people get put off by video. They're like, I could never blog about it, write about it. Just get out there and start. If somebody asked me, my neighbor asked me about my business the other day, and she said, what's the first video you ever made? I said, well, if you ever scroll down far enough and you find it, just be careful. I don't look the same.
I know.
It was scripted. It was god awful. It was so teacher-esque. And
my God. Same. If you go look on TikTok for me, my very first, because that's when my business, I got on TikTok. I'd never done short form video. No. I had never even taken a selfie of myself. I hated being in pictures. Same. I had never done any of that. And so if I look at my original TikTok, back in 2020, I cringe. I mean, it was totally when that whole trend was going on about the dancing and the pointing.
Oh, see, I never did that.
Oh, I did it. Oh, I did.
I literally was, because I was a teacher. So I just stood there and I had my outline of my lesson for the day. And I would literally, and it was funny now is I can do a TikTok in literally
seriously
1 minute. I don't edit it. I post it. It is what it is. And I don't fucking care. And I don't look back. Now, back then though, I was like, it would take 17 takes to do one video.
Oh my God.
I'm like, who am I?
I know.
Just say what you want to say and fucking hit send,
I know.
Yeah. I think with that though is I have pivoted no less than 9 times in my business.
Oh my God, same. Yeah.
And I'm getting ready to pivot again. Probably by the time this airs, I've pivoted one more time, and it's not the last pivot because this face can't be online forever. So, I got to keep pivoting and thinking of ways to keep my money growth going on my journey, but still helping people. So it's always going to constantly be changing and evolving. So don't think that you just have one idea, that it has to be that idea. And if it doesn't take off, you're a failure. Just pivot. Just pivot a little bit. Like maybe you just need to alter your message or alter what you're giving but you got to start. I'm pulling in the money that girl, I can't even fathom that we are the people we are now, because we were literally the people that sold a pickup truck just a few years ago to pay off credit card debt and went down to one vehicle because that was the only way we could survive. And for me, it's like, to know where we are now, because I never stopped. When nobody liked the video, when nobody left a comment, when I had my views were down, didn't fucking care. Made another video, made another video, made another video. I didn't stop.
Yes.
And it's all because of that consistency is why I'm here today and I make the money I make.
God, there's so many things you said that I just want to highlight. Number one is absolutely just freaking start. Like if anything, if you're listening to this and you're considering starting a business, listening to Sam and I talk about these are like learning how to become a master marketer on social media and learning how to do video and all. Those are all learned skills.
Yep.
You're not supposed to know how to do that. No. Like Sam and I didn't know how to do that. No. We learned how to do that. That's why I always tell people, I'm like, man, if you are just getting going, I don't care if you decide that we don't work together, we decide we're not a good fit, work with somebody who can just show you how to do this, because the amount of time and money and energy you will save by getting the cliff notes by somebody who knows how to do this is everything.
Can I tell you? Yeah. I remember sitting on the couch. We hadn't sold the pickup truck. We were in debt up to our eyeballs, and we had just had the 2 babies, and I had my 2 older kids. I don't even know what we were thinking. I had quit my teaching job to start, this coaching business.
Yeah.
And it wasn't taking off on my own. And I found somebody online, and it was $500. Jared and I sat for 3 days trying to figure out how we could have $500 to pay for somebody to teach me how to do this, right? Fast forward, I did it. Best decision ever, because it took off. Now I pay coaches $10,000 to coach me.
Yes.
And it's because it's just I can remember every word of that $500 conversation of well, if we cut this out, if we don't have pop this week, if we don't, do this week, if we only cut down on diapers, and we were scrounging for 500, but it was the best decision ever.
Honestly, for me, hiring my business coach was what catapulted me from $0 to over 6 figures within the first year, because 100%. I had a coach. And now I've almost developed within myself a codependent relationship with my coach, because I always tell her, if you ever break up with me, I don't know what I'm going to do. Right, and it's just because it's such a valuable information. Well, our relationship. Well, I'm just curious because a lot of women, they want to know how quickly will I start making money? And I want to manage expectations. You had said, it took you a few years to really get to where you are. What would you say as far as kind of managing expectations about, making money to replace your salary? What did you find in your experience?
Again, I'm one that I am all about visualizations and energy and where's my mind at and what do I want? And it sounds so hokey, but it so works. So at the beginning, I just want to replace my teaching salary. So I made $60,000 a year. I quit my teaching job and I was not making $60,000. I hired that coach and he was like, what's your goal? And I'm like, well, for sanity, I have to replace my teaching salary, because I knew we could hold our head at water level with my teaching salary. So I need to replace that. And boom, sales were coming in. And I was content with that, guys, because I was home with my own kids. I was happy with that. I'm like, 60,000 for staying at home. I make a couple videos a day. This is great. But then I wanted more. Then my kids were in travel sports. I'm like, okay, now I need more. And then it was just okay, but how could I scale this a little bit more and make more? And so I was very slow. I would say it took me about 2 full years to really get going to where we could even have the idea that Jared could quit his job. And then once we were like, okay, maybe we do want Jared to quit. And then it was like, okay, we have to replace his income. So now I have to have my old income plus a little bit more, now Jared's income. And then it was all what's the number I need to hit? I worked with my coach. What's a number that would make me feel comfortable that if I hit, all bills are paid, savings, investments, everything good. And it took me 3 months to hit that goal. And then he said, okay, hit it 6 months in a row, and Jared quits. And I was like, insurance. I had that figured in though, everything was figured in. So I hit it for 6 months and it just rose and it rose. And now I'm manifesting $10,000 days. And
yes,
for some
girl.
people that may sound crazy, but I'm nailing it.
I mean, I am here for it. I am here for it.
But it's one of those things when you figure this business out and you figure out marketing and you figure out course creation or whatever it is that you're going to push and you figure out how to scale it.
Yeah.
Anything is fucking possible.
Yes.
Anything is possible.
Yeah.
You build it, they will come.
Yes,
That's it.
girl. Yes.
It's that easy. I mean, when I wrote down $10,000 days, Jared was like, well, pretty ambitious. I said, fuck you, let's go.
Let's go.
And then we hit it and he was like, damn. He's like, maybe we should have said 15.
Damn.
I'm like, we can, we can change it to whatever we want, and I'm telling you, it's all about where your mindset is.
Yes.
Is where this will take you.
I'll tell you, like, for me, like, I actually gave up alcohol about, 9 months ago. And I will tell you,
I gave it up almost 2 years ago.
Seriously? What? Well, is it funny? Did you notice like such a difference in the way you showed up in your business? Right? When I dropped and it wasn't even an everyday drinker. For me, it was just like, for me, I was always a person like, you give me one, I'm going to have probably 4, right? Like, or 5, maybe even more. Like,
but
whatever.
Only on Friday or Saturday or
exactly.
Tuesday. Yeah.
Exactly. But I started to notice that even those 1 or 2 days a week where I would have a few drinks,
100%.
And I didn't realize it at the time, but then once I gave it up and then fully gave it up, that is when shit went crazy as far as my income, just growth, all of it. And so, and I think it was just creating that, like opening up that space for that mental clarity, for that just energetically, I was showing up different.
Well,
it was wild.
I think for me, it was quitting alcohol. And what it allowed me to do was I can see something happening in the community or on TV or in a movie or just in social life. And I'm like, that would help my business. Like,
yes,
it's a trigger for everything because my brain is so clear. Colors are brighter, smells are sharper, like
all of it,
everything. Because it was just keeping you in that constant little bit of inflammation all the time. And to me, once I think I quit like last October or August, like almost over a year ago. So, yeah, I mean, it was just one of those decisions. I wasn't an alcoholic, but it was a coping skill. I'm like, oh, rough day, like give me a drink. Oh, rough day. And now rough days are few and far between. And when they are, I'm like, okay, now I'm self-love, now I'm self-care, and I'm doing those kind of things, which then I don't feel guilty and shameful about later. And it's really just, if you want it, you got to put in the work. And sometimes the drinking just doesn't really help you.
That's exactly right. Oh my God. Okay. Well, I could literally rap with you all freaking afternoon, but I want to be mindful of your time. So quick, last question for you is, I'm so curious, you kind of teased out a little bit of a pivot in your business. Are you sharing the details of where you're going with that?
Yeah. And I don't know, again, this is one of those things where like, I don't know why it didn't come to me a year ago, So like I normally do a workshop every month. And then I really sat and thought about my client, and she is scared. She's afraid. She doesn't know what she's doing. She needs answers now. She found me and she wants me. Why was I doing a workshop once a month? Why don't I have it automated where she can have access to it all the time? So I'm going, I'm like, she needs help at 2:00 in the morning when she finds me. She needs that video now. She needs that course now. So we're switching everything over to be more evergreen, to where she can grab it now, learn, and she doesn't have to wait, because maybe she caught me as soon as my workshop was done. She's got to wait another 30 days. That's not my client. My client needs help instantly. So we're just going to make everything a library, a little bit more available on tips and tricks and things like that. But yeah, that's really it's a small pivot, but I think it's going to have a great impact, because again, that goes back to sales and marketing and strategy on really recognizing what your client is, who she is, and what's she coming to you for, and when does she need this information.
I love that. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Sam, thank you so much for being here. I loved our conversation. Where can the listeners find you and just learn a little bit more about you and what you offer?
Yes, everything can be located at samanthaboss.com, or you can just type in The Ugly Truth of Divorce on any social media site, and my face will pop up with all my information. So The Ugly Truth of Divorce is my tagline, because as you've learned today, like I just say how it is and the reality of the situation that you're dealing with. And so that's why I love just telling the truth. I think a lot of lawyers give us some fluff, and I think a lot of people only tell you certain parts of their divorce. They don't tell you all their parts of their divorce. So I love to give the ugly truth about it.
I love it. You're such a badass. I'm curious. So is Boss your real last name, or are you just like, is that your stage name? Because I'm like, that's so fitting for you.
That is my name.
Oh, I love it.
It's not my married name, but it is my name.
It's so fitting for you. I'm like, yes, you are a fucking boss. Okay. Yes. Sam, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.